For my husband's lunch today, I'm going to start off by cutting up an apple into some slices. I also squeezed on some lemon juice to keep them from browning. Added a handful of mixed nuts. I'm also going to add in some lumpia, which I made the other night, along with a side of sweet chili sauce. For the main course, I'm going to be packing in some leftover yakisoba. Here's me cutting and cooking up the ingredients last night. Yakisoba is a pretty popular street food made in Japan. It's a really simple noodle stir fry that mainly consists of cabbage and carrots and also a protein. For mine, I have pork. To make my life easy, I buy the instant packet, which comes with the noodles and the seasoning already. All I have to do is stir fry it all up and it's pretty much good to go. Once it's ready, I packed it away into the lunchbox. Don't worry, I'll make sure those flyaway noodles make it into the box. Now that it's done, I packed it away and included a note for my husband. For my husband's lunch today, I've got some jerky sausage links that I cut in half. I also peeled a yellow kiwi, which is my husband and I's favorite fruit right now. I also cut a hard-boiled egg in half. I kind of had to rearrange some things since it didn't really work, but I was able to use the sauce container to add the nuts and the sausage links. For the main portion today, I'm going to be doing a classic fried bologna sandwich. It's not often that I make these kind of sandwiches, but I remember making them when I was a kid with my dad. It was one of the only things that he really knew how to make, but I loved doing that with him. And of course, he taught me to cut the slits on the sides of the bologna so it doesn't curl up. I kept it simple by adding mayo and American cheese. I did end up having to cut the sandwiches down since my bread is larger than regular size bread, but of course my dog got the scraps, which he always enjoys. Now that everything's done, I packed everything together and of course included a note to tell my husband that I love him. Let's make lunch for my husband. For the top portion, I'm going to be starting off with an edamame salad, sprinkled with some sesame seeds, along with a handful of walnuts. I've also got this humongous Asian pear. I would highly recommend this to anyone who likes apples and pears. It's super sweet. You can actually eat with the skin on too, but my husband and I prefer it without. I added in some Oreos. And for the main portion, I'm going to be making a simple fried rice. This is one of my go-to dishes if I have a lot of random ingredients and leftover rice in my fridge. For this one, I have a little bit of pork and shiitake mushrooms, a few scrambled eggs and green onions, and some bean sprouts, which I think makes the rice perfect in my opinion. Once it's all done, I packed it all away and added a few more scallions. I did make the rice spicy, but my husband likes it extra spicy, so I gave him some sriracha. Now that it's ready to go, I packed it all away and of course included a note to tell him that I love him. For my husband's lunch today, I'm preparing some celery and peanut butter logs. I've also added in some rice cracker chips. I just discovered them and they're pretty dang good. I've added in some Annie's bunny gummies and 2 baby bells. I ended up adding some more bunny gummies because why not? And for the main portion, I'm going to be doing some BLTs. And here's some nice bacon sounds. Starting off my BLTs with some toasted bread and mayo. I layer in my lettuce, tomato, and bacon. I put the tomatoes in between my bacon and lettuce to prevent the bread from getting soggy. Here I've trimmed up the edges so the sandwiches fit in the box a bit better. Since I had no more room to add a pickle, I ended up putting it on the top layer, which worked out perfectly. Now that it's good to go, I packed it all away and of course included a note to tell my husband that I love him and that I brought home the bacon. For my husband's lunch today, I'm going to be starting off by packing in some sauteed spinach, along with some caprese skewers that I made, topped off with some salt and pepper and a balsamic glaze. I added in some egg omelet, also these cute octopus-shaped sausages that I think are so fun. For the main portion, I'm going to be doing a Japanese-style steak and rice bowl. I've placed in some fresh rice and thinly sliced leftover steak that my husband and I had the other night. Typically, this dish is topped off with a sweet soy sauce glaze, so I'm going to go ahead and make that now. This sauce is super easy to make, and I'll make sure to post the exact measurements in my next video. Once the sauce has cooked down and thickened up, I'm going to strain and pour over my steak and rice. Typically, this is served with wasabi, which I highly recommend. Now that it's ready to go, I've packed it all away and of course included a note to tell my husband that I love him. For my husband's lunch today, I'm going to be starting with the top portion. This time I'm going to be making some Spanish tomato toast. It's super simple and easy. You start off by grating some tomatoes. I like to add some finely grated garlic and of course freshly ground pepper, along with some salt and a pinch of sugar just to balance out the acidity. Here I've toasted up some ciabatta bread. Of course I had to do a little taste test for some quality control. Since they both passed my taste test, I'm going to pack it into the box, along with a peanut butter chocolate kind bar and some energy gummies since this lunch is for Monday. For the main portion, I'm going to be packing in some leftover beef short ribs that I braised in red wine. They were fall off the bone good, and I'm packing it with some roasted carrots and some garnish because I just can't help not garnishing stuff. Now that it's ready to go and I've added the lid for that tomato sauce, I'm packing it away and of course including a note for my husband to tell him that I love him. For my husband's lunch today, I'm going to be keeping the top pretty simple by slicing up some red bell pepper and also some cucumber and packing those both into the box and pairing it with some hummus and also a handful of walnuts. I'm also going to be packing in some Biscoff cookies, which I'm sure you guys remember. They used to serve these on a couple different airlines. Moving on to the main portion where I'm going to be making some sandwiches. For this sandwich, I'm going to be using ciabatta bread and spreading on a thin layer of cream cheese. I definitely recommend putting cream cheese on your next sandwich. It's super good. Keeping it simple, I'm using sliced salami and baby arugula. Now that they're ready, I'm going to cut them in half so they fit better in the box and of course so you can see that lovely cross section. This time I was also able to add in some pickles to snack on, and now that it's ready to go, I'm packing it all away and of course including a note to tell my husband that I'm thinking of him. For my husband's lunch today, we're going to be starting with the top and adding in some edamame salad. I know a lot of you asked for the recipe, so I'll make sure to post it after this video. Continuing on, I cubed up some Asian pear to go in as well, packing in a brownie bar and also a handful of salted peanuts. And for the main portion, I'm going to be packing in some leftover marinated boneless short ribs. I prepared this meat on Tuesday, and then last night my husband and I had Korean barbecue for dinner. This cut of meat is one of our favorites whenever we do Korean barbecue, especially since the marinade is so sweet and savory. It comes out super flavorful and you don't need any dipping sauce to go with it. Of course, I packed in some fresh rice and some kimchi, and then a sprinkling of green onions. Now that it's ready to go, I'm packing everything away. And of course, I'm writing a little note to tell my husband that I'm thinking of him. For my husband's lunch today, I of course am going to start off by peeling another yellow golden kiwi. I know you guys have seen a lot of my yellow kiwis, but I can't help it since they're super good. I'm also going to pack in a very simple cabbage salad. The dressing is super simple, equal parts mayo and ketchup mixed together. And also with that, I'm going to pack in some mixed nuts. For the main portion, I'm going to be doing some ramdon noodles, which is often seen in the movie Parasite. If you haven't given these a try, I would definitely recommend. Instead of using sirloin steak like in the movie, I'm using thinly sliced brisket because that's what I have on hand, which I think works better because the steak stays tender and it doesn't get tough. Once it's done, I top it with some sesame oil, a sprinkling of green onions, and of course to be a little extra, I added in a soft boiled egg. Now that it's ready to go, I'm packing it away and of course including a note to tell my husband to enjoy the nudes.